So, my talk today is on the changing rules and our resiliency. But first, a joke. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Because if they flew over the bay, they'd be called bagels. All right. Man, the rules keep changing, don't they? Staying home, wear a mask. We need to, since March, since this thing first started, we've had to deal with, we can get together, we can't get together, we can get together, we can't get together. We have stay-at-home orders, social distancing. Restaurants have to just be takeout. Now you can sit outside a restaurant. Now it's just takeout again. These rules just keep changing. And for a lot of people, that's hard. But I want to remind anybody who's finding this hard, the changing rules, that you have been dealing with changing rules since the day you were born. You went, the first rules you had to deal with were your parents' rules. And if you had anything like my parents, those rules kept changing. They weren't even consistent. I remember when I was when I was about to have a son, and I was being trained as a parent. I took a little training around that, and they said the most important thing is to be consistent. And I can assure you that that did not happen. That and that my parents weren't consistent, because things change. Things change all the time. And then we go into kindergarten, and then there's these rules around that, right? We're now with these people we call teachers, who we're learning about for the first time, who are telling us what to do, and we got to do this, and now it's nap time, and we can go out there. And then you get to first grade, and they change again. I have a very clear memory of my first day in first grade. And the teacher saying we had to sit behind the desk and stay there. And me thinking that she was just teasing us, that couldn't actually be true. It couldn't actually be true that she wanted me to sit still for any longer than 10 minutes at a time. Because I'd never done that. And so it didn't occur to me even that she was serious. And so when I got up and started walking around the room, she started chasing me. And so I thought we were now in a game and started running. And so she's chasing me in the classroom. Everybody's laughing, this and that, as I'm running, and the teacher's chasing me and all this stuff. And then that evening, boy, did I get a spanking, and a clear message that the teacher was not kidding. And I had to sit there. And that was a huge rule changer for me, who had up to that point had never sat still for over a couple of minutes at a time, like ever. And so I struggled. I personally struggled with a lot of the rules in school. Like nobody had before this time had ever said to me when I said I had to go to the bathroom, no, you have to wait. Like that had never happened to me before I was in these classes. And that became a real issue for me. People telling me when I could go to the bathroom and not go to the bathroom. Things lead like that. And then the life unfolds more. And then you grow up and you start getting into, maybe some of you, had some issues with some of the rules you had to deal with. Or maybe you were one of the kids who were like, I'm following the rules. Right? I'm going to follow the rules. I'm going to be that good boy or girl, and I'm going to just make it through this, because this is how you succeed in life, following the rules, right? And so there's the ones who do that, who go along with that. And so that's how they do it. And then we get into social situations for the first time. I remember, specifically by the time grade school and more in middle school, when cliques started to happen, And all of a sudden there were rules about who could be in what clique and who was popular and who wasn't, and struggling with those rules. And then and then you keep going, and then you're in high school and the rules change a little more, and then you get to college, and now there are in some ways less rules for the first time when you get to college. And so now you've been dealing with all these rules for so long, and now there's less rules. And for some of us, like somebody like me, that was a time to really go wild because there were less rules. Now, and then you go out into the workforce and the rules change again. Then you start having relationships with people who you're attracted to, and there are rules around that. How to behave, how to be, so that whoever you're liking, attracted to, isn't upset with you all the time. You're dealing with those rules. And so all of us, as we've gone through life, have consistently dealt with whatever rules of the game. I was big into sports. I played baseball, I played football, not by the time I got to high school, but before that, football, baseball, tennis, they all have rules. And you got to follow those rules to play those games, right? But then you get to science of mind teaching. And then all of a sudden you realize there's a way to transcend these rules. Now, I'm not specifically talking about breaking the rules. I mean, we have laws in our society, right? Those are rules too, laws that say you got to behave this way or this way or this way, or you wind up in jail. So I'm not specifically talking about breaking rules, but there is a way in which I know that for me, before science of mind, before I understood my spirituality, before I understood that I was actually larger than this human body that I feel and touch, that there was a point at which I started realizing, once I was more than this, that how I created my life stopped being so dependent upon the rules. Because many of us grew up thinking that the rules actually somehow boxed us in a way that impacted whether we thrived in life or not. And for those of you who did really well following the rules, that's the way you thrived. For me, I spent most of my life fighting the rules and sometimes thriving and sometimes not. Until I realized that the rules were not my enemy. They were neither my friend nor my enemy. They were simply something in the human world, and that my ability to thrive, your ability to thrive, actually transcends it. Transcends anything that is part of humanity. You've heard me say this a million trillion times, what we embody manifests. And so here we are in this time period where we're impacted by these rules of wearing a mask or social distancing. And many people, because of these rules, are seeing their businesses close, their ability to make money stymied. And those people who are impacted by those rules, if they are truly impacted by those rules, they are not practicing the science of mind. Because we have a way to transcend this simply by knowing that our good is not dependent upon these rules. Our good is not dependent upon what happens next in this pandemic, in our government. Our ability to be healthy and thrive is dependent upon what we embody. And so I ran into a Science of Mind church about 25 years ago and started learning some of these principles. And these principles' impact on my life have been so dramatic that that my life has just keeps getting greater and greater. My health getting stronger. I'm 65 and I am so much healthier than when I was in my 20s, where I was in and out of hospitals all the time. There's something that happens when we practice and embody remembering, bringing forth that which is so in terms of our spiritual beingness, that we are infinite beings having a human experience. This human experience, the rules will continue to change. They have all our lives. So what makes us, there's a way in which I have responded to COVID in a way in which it's no different than any other time in my life. It's just different. It's just the same. I mean, it's different and the same. It's just another opportunity to transcend the rules. If I get too close to somebody, I might catch COVID. That's one of the rules right now. If I don't wear a mask, I might catch COVID. How do I transcend this so so instead of getting stuck in the fear of it all, I'm simply knowing for myself that life works, that my life works, that your life works, that we transcend this. Now, am I saying if you're so sure you're not going to get sick, don't go wearing a mask? I am not saying that. I want to be very clear. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that we have from that place, where that once you have that place of embodiment, that place of knowing that your life thrives no matter what, when you've really taken that in, then you have the higher knowing as to what is your next step to do, whether it be wearing a mask or not. Now, for most of us, because we care about others and we come from a place of love, we wear masks simply because others feel more comfortable if we do. Man, if it was just up to me, honestly, I wouldn't wear one because I am not afraid of getting sick. But I do wear one. Why? Because I care about others and I care about their sensibilities, and not everybody has embodied at the level that I have. And so I respond to life in a way now that comes from a place of my knowing that I thrive as long as I am paying attention to that higher self that is guiding me to take whatever my next step is. What is mine to do? Now, again, you've heard me talk about what is mine to do a lot. And we can get really lost in the drama and the day-to-day humanity, the human condition that comes upon us at any given moment. Josu saw that in me earlier when we were playing around with the computers. Yeah, it's a very fragile and hard thing to do to pull off live music. And I have yet to embody around that's just going to work out the way, to the highest and best. And sometimes I get a little stressed when we're setting that up. And that comes out because I'm not perfect at this. But what I do know is even when I'm not perfect, I get to remember, I get to key back in, I get to bring myself back. And that's the key. One of my favorite teachings that I got early on in Science of Mind from Dr. Barbara Waterhouse is it's not what you do first, it's what you do second. Instantly, we could respond from that human part of ourselves. But at some point, we need to get a hold of ourselves and remind ourselves, actually, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and whatever happens here is for our highest and best. It's another opportunity to rise. And so here we are, facing new rules. And as far as I can tell, these new rules that are going to keep changing are going to keep changing and keep evolving through this pandemic for maybe another 6 to 8 months, maybe longer. So we could get really bummed about that we can't get back together for another 6 to 8 months, or we could see the good, see where we can move forward, remind ourselves that what this is about is transcendence. This is a perfect time to practice transcendence. Practice remembering when we feel caught in the web of the pandemic and its rules, its ever-changing rules, that there is something that is not ever-changing. There is something we can depend upon, and that is the principles of science of mind. We can depend on that what we embody manifests. We can depend upon that there is a power for good in the universe and we can use it, like Dr. Holmes used to say all the time. We can depend upon that. This pandemic doesn't change that. Wearing a mask or not wearing a mask doesn't change that. Social distancing does not change that. We can depend upon that if we practice remembering the truth of who we are as spiritual beings, our lives will thrive and grow. We can depend upon that at any age, at any time, no matter what the circumstance. We have a chance here, a real opportunity. We've had it ongoing our whole lives. When we hold what is going on now as simply another way of practicing our spiritual nature, then it doesn't even matter what the circumstance is, because all we're doing is practicing our spiritual nature. I've talked to you guys several times about Paolin Gyatso, who was captured by the Chinese. He was a Tibetan monk who was tortured for 30 years, every single day. And the only thing he ever thought about was his biggest concern was to stop loving the Chinese that were torturing him. When he was finally released, the Dalai Lama said, "This is the most enlightened man on the planet." I mean, when you look into Paolin Gyatso's face, you see nothing but love, spirit, and beauty. If you ever get a chance, Google him, look him up. He's an amazing man. And the one thing I constantly remind myself is I am not being tortured by the Chinese. I'm not being tortured right now. And if he can do it that way, based on what he went through, the least I could do is give it the best shot I can to rise to that place of my concern being loving my fellow man, my fellow woman, my fellow humanity, no matter what the circumstance. If he can do it as an ordinary man, any one of us can do it. And so this is our opportunity. Don't let the rules get you down. Don't feel put off, thrown, and if you are for a minute, that's fine, because I get that way too. And then just bring ourselves back. It's okay to have that human moment. Just don't let it be a human lifetime. Bring yourself back to that spiritual place of knowing that you are an infinite divine being having a human experience. It's okay what's going on, really, because what we embody manifests, which means the circumstances that are yours are the ones that give you the opportunity to rise. That's all. That's all it is. And when we think it's more than that, that's when we might get caught in the human condition. We are here to rise, to be our greater selves. And no rule can get in the way of that. Thank you. I love you. That's my talk for today.